so I bought this camper last year, just about a year ago, and I haven't done anything with it yet until now. And the camper needs a little bit of work, but that's not what this video is going to be about, because I don't really care too much about this camper. Basically, what I'm going to do is bring this up to the Adirondacks, upstate New York. I have property up there, 32 acres, and I'm going to be building a whole bunch of things up there. And the first thing we're going to do is start off with just a tiny little off-grid cabin. We're never going to have power up there. We're going to do everything off-grid, simply because it's way too far from the road and the price of bringing in power is astronomical. So the first step we need to do is get this camper to the point where we can bring it up there and leave it up there, and I want everything hooked up. So I'm going to install some solar panels, an inverter, some batteries. We're going to have everything working on it by the time we get up there. And then we're going to use this for a little while until we get the first cabin built, and then I'm probably going to bring it back home and sell it. So I could do some work to this, like repaint it and just, you know, little things, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to get rid of it pretty soon anyways, so there's no point in doing that. So this is actually not a camper, this is a toy hauler, and the reason it's called a toy hauler is because you can actually open up the back and it folds down and you can drive a quad in there. So let me show you what that's about. You gotta lift up and then pull back. Yeah, and now the other one. There you go.
Bye. Me and Noah are going in our restaurant.
So like I said, this is a toy hauler, so you can ride a quad up in there. Probably just one quad, maybe 2 motorcycles though. Actually, you could probably get 2 quads if you put them all the way up. Alright, so pretty basic camper in here. I didn't really want anything fancy. I kind of wanted something with more storage area than anything, which is what this has. So there's a fold down bed right there, and then that couch also folds out to a bed too, and then there's just a sink, a little stove, a fridge, a little tiny bathroom. Nothing special, nothing fancy. Does the trick though. And it will get us by instead of using a tent. So the roof doesn't leak, the floor is alright. There's just one little soft spot right there. We'll put a piece of plywood there, but other than that, I'm not really trying to do a whole bunch of work to this. So the first order of business for this project is going to be fitting these batteries into here. I got 3 of these, and these batteries are 48 volts, and this is 100 amps. So if you do the math, that's around 5 kilowatt hours. So you can either run 5,000 watts for an hour or 1,000 watts for 5 hours, or any combination that you can think of. 500 watts for 10 hours, whatever you can think of. So I got 3 of these, and I was hoping that I could stack all 3 right here, and then over here on this little wall right here, I was hoping I could put the inverter. And then that way I can take the cord for the shore power, and when I'm on site I can bring this over here, and I was hoping to mount a plug right here so that I can just take this and plug it in. Now I could hardwire that all the way into the panel and bring it all the way over there, but I don't think it's necessary, because the only time I'm going to need this power is when this is stationary. I'm not going to be traveling and need the power, so it's really not a big deal to just take that out of there, plug it in over here when I'm actually on site. So this company actually sent me brackets which are really nice for this brand, because they incorporate all of the wiring into the brackets. So they have bus bars on the side of the brackets that you can connect everything without using a bunch of wires. It keeps it nice and clean. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to use these brackets in here, simply because I just don't have a lot of space. So I will try to figure that out right now. And by the way, this brand is actually really good. I don't know if you guys watch Will Krause, but he does a lot of solar videos, and he did a few reviews on these, and basically he said that these are one of the best batteries that you can get. So like I said, I have 3 of these, so that's 15 kilowatt hours. I was thinking that that should be enough to do whatever I need to do, and then charge up during the day, and then I'll have a small generator in case we don't see a lot of sun or I use a lot of power at night. But right now, let me figure out if I can use these brackets, because I would like to use them if I could. They secure the batteries better, plus you can use the bus bars instead of running a bunch of wires. So let me see if I got enough room to do that. Alright, so I figured out that this is not going to work with 3 batteries. This is one of the front brackets that you put on, and it makes everything about almost 2 inches taller. So 3 batteries will fit in here if I stack them on top of each other. But if I put those in there, it's going to leave a space in between each one that's going to make it so that I can't stack it up to the ceiling there. So I kind of figured that that would be the case. I was hoping that it would still work, but that's not the battery's fault. That's just the space that I'm limited to right now. So the deal long term is going to be, I'm going to use this camper just for a little while to get the other buildings built. Once they are built and we can actually sleep in them, then I won't be using this anymore, and then I'm going to transfer all this stuff out of here into those buildings. So then I'll have plenty of room to do the server rack here. And this camper is just gonna get sold anyways. So this is sort of a temporary thing, but it may be temporary for 6 months to a year, or maybe even a little bit more. I'm not totally sure yet. Depends on how much time I have to dedicate into building these buildings for right now, which I'm hoping to get the first one done definitely this year. So we should be getting rid of this camper pretty soon. I've told you guys this on videos a long time ago. I am not a fan of campers. I just think that they're disgusting, and I think that they're flimsy and just totally junk, even the best ones. So the goal is to get rid of this thing as soon as possible and be in an actual building. The other option is I could just put 2 batteries in here for right now, and I'm sure that would be fine. I'm kind of going back and forth about what I want to do here. Literally like 2 inches short from making this work. And the other option is I do have the other side over there that opens up. So that other side opens up just like this one. But the problem is putting it over on that other side, I'd have to run longer cables. So when you have 3 batteries like this and you have 2 cables that are short going to each other, and then you have another longer one going over there, it kind of throws things off balance. So it'd be better not to do that. I just did a bunch of research online, and the consensus was that you can stack up to 3 of these on top of each other and not have any space between them. they don't really create much heat, and if you are creating heat, then you're probably overworking the batteries. And in my case, I know I'm not going to be creating any heat because I only have a 3,000 watt inverter, and these are capable of putting out 5,000 watts a piece. So I'm not worried about creating heat. But I think what I'm going to do here is just sort of make my own rack that's customized for in here. So I'm going to still mount all three of them together using these slots right here. All right, so that's pretty much what I got here. So I'm gonna get this all ground down, painted up, and I'll also get a couple holes drilled to go into the floor. And then when I stack these units, first one goes right on these pieces of 1/4 inch by 1 1/4 bar. That sits right there, so that's got a 1/4 inch off the floor, which is not much, but it's something. And then in between each battery, there's gonna be a piece of 3/8 bar to space it 3/8 from one battery to the other. And those spacers, I figured, should probably just be loose in there, because if I try to put them in there in any way where they're mounted permanently, then sliding these units in is gonna be a pain. So I figured the way it is right now, I can kind of get the end of this unit in here, slide it in, bolt it in. The next unit kind of rests on top of the other unit, slides in, and then you just lift up the back, put the spacer in, lift up the front, put the spacer in, and do the same thing for the next one. because handling those things at 110 pounds is not easy. So if you can make it any easier by not having things that you don't need, like permanent spacing in there, then that's what I'm gonna do. So while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm going to move to a different part of the project, which is going to be installing the inverter. I didn't measure it yet, but I was hoping I could put the inverter right on that wall. It's pretty small, but I don't know if it's that small, so let's find out. So this is an inverter by EG4. It's a 3000 watt, 48 volt inverter, and it also has a charge controller, which pretty much any 48 volt inverter has. And that's the solar charge controller, but it also has an input for AC charging, which is nice because if you're starting out with just a basic 12 volt inverter, you would have to have an inverter, a charge controller for the solar. You'd also have to have another charger if you want to charge from AC, and then you have to run wires from all these different things. And so with this unit, it pretty much combines everything all into one, which is pretty standard when you bump it up to 48 volts. So I actually bought a bunch of stuff for this about a year ago when I first started getting into this kind of stuff, and I bought everything 12 volt. I bought 4 car looking batteries, but they're lithium iron phosphate, and I also bought an inverter and a charge controller and an AC charger, some battery buses, and all kinds of different stuff to set this up. So I still have all that stuff, but I'm going to use it somewhere else. I just figured that since I'm going to eventually need solar up in the Adirondacks anyways, I might as well use the equipment that I'm going to use then. I might as well use it now and save the 12 volt stuff for other stuff, because once I get buildings established, I'm not going to be running anything 12 volt. The advantage to running something that's 48 volts instead of 12 volts is basically you can get the same amount of power but use wires that are 4 times less. So because you're going 4 times more voltage, you can get 4 times the amount of power out of the same wires. So I honestly think the only place that I can mount this unit is going to be right on that wall. And right there is where the batteries are going to be, so it's not too bad. And they do want you to mount this on something that's non-flammable, preferably either steel or concrete. So we're going to see if we can just mount this on maybe a hardy board or something. So I actually decided to use some steel. This is 16 gauge steel, and I primed both sides. And I'm going to mount this right there, and then I'm going to use some self-tapping screws to mount the unit. I thought that that would be better than something like hardy board, because you can't mount anything to the hardy board, so at least you can with this. Okay, so we got our AC in on the left, AC out on the right, and there's our PV. And then on the bottom we got our battery, positive and negative, that goes into there. And by the way, this is very secure. I'm actually quite surprised. The lighting in here is terrible, so bear with me while I hook this up. So with this inverter, EG4 gives you two cables here, and this is 4 gauge, or number 4, and one side already has some ferrules on it, square crimped ferrules, and so these are going to go right into there, and then basically I'm going to drill a couple holes going down through here, and right here is that wall to the right as you're looking inside of that compartment, and I'm going to put my battery breaker right there. Okay, so very long screwdriver. Okay, so I had bought a ferrule set, a crimper and ferrules for this, and I thought I got a big enough kit, but I didn't. The pieces that I got are only good for up to 8 gauge, so it's not going to work for here. So yeah, I could stop everything and wait a week for those to come in, but I think for right now what we're going to do is just hook this into the breaker just the way it is. And this should, I think, be the only spot that I need the ferrules. And then we'll just change those out once we get to that point. It's easy to just pull these out, put the ferrules on, put it back in. So I don't want to hold everything up just because of that. So just the positive gets the breaker. The negative will continue on over to a bus bar, which that's a bus bar. And that's a 300 amp bus bar. And it doesn't matter what voltage you're running at. 300 amps is 300 amps. So 300 amps times 48 volts, which is actually, they count that as what, like 52 volts when it's full. So basically this bus bar is good for 300 amps times 52 volts. So that's 15,000 watts, 15,600 watts if you're running a 48 volt system. So the inverter can only pull 3,000 watts. So obviously we're way more than good enough. So as of right now, I have this battery temporarily hooked up, and I'm just trying to test things out because the communications between the battery and the inverter is something that's not very known. I'm pretty sure it will work, but I haven't gotten it to work yet. So I'm probably going to run the communications off of the voltage, which means that I can't directly communicate with the battery to get the state of charge, but I can get the voltage, which is pretty close. So right now it's Sunday, I can't really call any of these companies to figure this out. So I just want to move on to the next thing, which is going to be charging this battery station from a generator. And to do that, you can charge these with any generator, but if you want to use one that's not an inverter generator, it creates dirty power. So what you got to do is get yourself a Chargeverter 5000 from EG4, and what this does is cleans up the power from a regular generator so that you can charge your batteries and not have to worry about damaging the inverter. So this one is a 5000 watt Chargeverter. So basically you can take either 120 volts or 240 volts, pass it through this to charge your batteries, and you can do that with any generator. Now if you have an inverter generator that creates clean power, you don't need this. And I do have one, but it's a smaller one. It's only 1500 watt or 1800 watts or whatever, 2000, something like that. So I'm thinking that I should just install this so that I can use my bigger generator, which is 4000 watts, and then that way I can use either one of them. Because at 15 kilowatt hours of storage, if you were to use a 1800 watt generator, that would take you over 7 hours to charge that. But if you're using 4000 watts, then you can charge it in 3 to 4 hours. So I have two of those Chargeverters, so I might as well just put one in because I'm not using it anyways. So here it is about midnight, and I just got an email back from Ruxu about updating these batteries so that these can communicate with that EG4 3000. So these batteries basically just need a firmware update, which that's what they're doing right now. And I actually had to make a custom cable. This is a RS485 to USB, and basically on the USB cable you connect the orange to the black on the USB, and then the orange and white wire coming from the Ethernet cable you connect to the red on the USB cable, and then you can download a program and it will update. So then once it's updated, you put the dip switch number 4 up, and then you go on the EG4 3000 and you select lithium battery 4, and that should make these communicate. And I know that sounds crazy, and to some people that's like a foreign language, but to some people that are doing this situation, this might be extremely helpful. I wish I would have known that. But luckily I'm talking directly to one of the higher up people at Ruxu. I hope I'm saying that right. It seems like it's Ruixu, but it's Ruxu, I believe. I'm talking to one of the higher ups in that company, and she has been very helpful. I mean, here it is at midnight and she just messaged me. So I don't know. I mean, you can't get much better than that. And it's Sunday too. Sunday at midnight. Sunday at 12:22. And I'm talking to this company right now. So, successful upgrade. Alright, so now what I can do is unplug this. Oh, and by the way, this you want to plug in to the top of the master battery. So actually all of them are updating right now. So we're going to let these other two batteries update as well, and then I will check back in with you guys when I get the inverter on. Okay, so it seems like all the updates are done. So now what we're going to do is shut off all of these. We're going to turn on number 4 dip switch on just the master battery. Then we're gonna turn on that one. Then they want you to wait like, I don't know, 10 seconds or so. And then turn on the next one. And on the two slave batteries here, all the dip switches are off. So then we're gonna unplug our custom adapter. We're gonna plug in this RJ45 to USB, which is plugged into the inverter, into the top of the master battery. These other two are connected to each other. So now, hopefully, we should be able to turn on this breaker. The inverter turns on. And now, we want to hold down the enter button, go into setting number 5, hit enter, go down to lithium battery number 4, hit enter, escape, and look at that. Sweet. That means it's working. I don't know if you can see that, but right next to that little battery, that little icon that says LI, that means that we are successfully connected to the BMS of the batteries. The BMS is the battery monitoring system. So now, instead of just reading the voltage, we are actually reading all of the parameters from the batteries, which is so much nicer. It's like going from the Stone Age to 2024. So now we should be able to read all different kinds of stuff here. So okay, so there's our battery voltage, 54.6. I'm assuming that's the combined battery voltage. Okay, cool. 47%. That's the combined state of charge. That's like the average between all three of them, which seems right. So that's sweet. So that's exactly what we were looking for. I have been racking my brain out trying to figure this out because I kept getting an error code 19, and it was simply because the battery just needed to be updated. And I haven't even updated this unit yet, but I probably will do that soon, even though it's working, so I don't see any point in doing that, but I probably should do that. So now I can finally sleep. So at this point now, because these batteries are actually communicating with the inverter, we have everything pretty much set up the way I want. I am going to install the outlet right here to the inverter so that I can plug in that shore power cord into here. And then also right here on the front, because I don't want to add width and put it on the side here, also on the front I'm going to put a generator input, and what that's going to do is go to charge this system using a generator, and I'm going to make it so it's dual purpose so that I can either use this generator or a bigger generator. So that's a 30 amp outlet at 120 volts for the RV shore plug. That's that cord that goes to the back of the unit and it powers the entire camper.
want cool blue light.
Alright, so I got the outlet on the outside plugged into the AC out ground over here. So now we can actually fire up this inverter, plug in the RV, and see what we can power in here. But right now we're using shore power off of an extension cord, but it'd be nice to just power it off this system, because then you can start to see what kind of wattage you're using, especially for things like the air conditioner. I'd like to figure that out. See, right now this plug is converted to just a regular outlet. I'm gonna take this off. Oh, that's stupid. What? that's stupid. It's upside down, but it'll allow us to test it, and then I'll switch that over. There we go. Everything is on. Powered off the battery. Let's see, what are we using now? Using okay, so we're using 270 watts right now. Alright, so I'm going to go turn on the AC and see how much that uses. Wow, that uses quite a bit. It's a little over a kilowatt there, so it's like 1100 watts. Minus all the lights that are on. So that AC uses a lot more than I thought. I thought maybe 400 or 500 watts. That's not the case. Alright, so I just turned the AC off and now we're down to 30-40 watts. So yeah, that AC uses a lot more than I thought. But the nice thing is this camper is really small, so if we have to use the AC, it'll probably just be for like 10 or 15 minutes, and that will probably last for a while, and then it'll turn off. That's not too bad. But that's nothing to do with the inverter or the batteries. That's just the AC is just using more power than I thought. Because if I was to use that at 1000 watts, I would only get 15 hours of straight usage out of it, which seems like a lot. But I don't want to be running the generator all the time just to catch up either. But like I said, if we're using that AC, it'll be for like 15 minutes, then we'll shut it off for a while. So I don't think that'll be any problem at all. My goal was to have enough battery to go up for at least a weekend and use the batteries without having to charge them up at all, except for whatever we get with solar. But right now there's so many trees up there that we're not going to get a lot with solar. So it's not going to be charging 15 kilowatt hours during the weekend. But it's neat that everything's running off that inverter right now, so all these lights. Got tons of lights, and these are all incandescent too, so, well, I don't know if they're incandescent, but they're not LED. But I did buy all nice LED lights for here, so these use up a lot of power and they create a lot of heat, but we're not going to be using them. So I got a whole pack of LED lights. Let's see what we can reduce all this to. Starting out at 300 watts. Let's see what it is with all the lights on with LED lights. I'm dying to see how much light these put out. Ooh, I like that. I like that bluish. Yeah, it's definitely nice. I know there's a lot of people that don't like that bluish light, but I love it compared to that yellowish, like that. See that yellowish light and then this bluish light? I love that. So much better. Alright, so I just replaced all those bulbs. I still have a few left. And it's looking really good in here. See, is there one in here? Oh yeah, there's one in there too. That means there must be one in here. That's cool. See, what I like about these is that mice can't get into these, which I think we actually mouse-proof this whole thing, but just in case, mice can't get into there, so we can put food in there and stuff. And then you can turn this light on in here and close this, and then you got like a little night light. That's kind of cool. That looks nice. Alright, so now with everything running, including the 3 lights that I didn't even know were there, let's see what we got now. About 70 watts on average, compared to 300 and something. Plus, they're not making heat either, which is really nice. And they're a lot brighter, and I love the color. So that is sweet. Looks nice. Where's the marble plate? Alright, so that's nice and secure in there. It's not going anywhere. Taking a whole trailer. So like I said, I'm just going to keep the 1 in here for now. I don't think there's a point in putting the other 2 in until I actually am on site. But I do want to get this charge inverter hooked up so that I can start charging all these. I'm going to charge them all together, so I'll just string the cables down here to the other 2 and hook them all up. And then the charge inverter basically outputs 56 volts, I think it is. And so I'm just going to hook that right into the bus bar right there, and then that will charge all the batteries at once. So I need to get these other batteries just hooked into there temporarily, and then I need to mount that charge inverter. They want you to mount that on something that's not flammable, so I got a piece of steel that's perfect for it. I'll put it right on the floor there, and so the charge inverter will be just right here. Everything else will be right here. Be nice and tidy in here. That's my next thing I gotta do. Actually, once the solar stuff is hooked up, it's pretty much a done deal. Alright, so at this point I am actually charging these batteries with just an extension cord that I have running off of an outlet in here, which is clean power. So we'll test it out with the generator later. But basically what I'm doing is I made this little plug right here, and this plug converts 120 to the 240 plug, because this charge inverter can run off of 120 or 240. So I just have this little adapter plug here, and basically that just allows me to plug a regular extension cord into it, which I'll use a heavy duty extension cord so I can get a full 20 amps out of it. And that goes into this box, which goes into the charge inverter to charge the batteries, but also that's set up for 240. So if I want to use my bigger generator and run 4,000 or 5,000 watts, I can do that as well. And the nice thing about this charge inverter is it doesn't care whether you're doing 120 or 240. It just sort of automatically picks up whatever you are trying to do. So right now I have this charge inverter set. Of course you guys can't really see that because it's flickering, but the voltage is at 53.5 volts, which is what the batteries are right now. And the batteries are charging. And these batteries want to see 56 volts to charge, so that's what I have it set at. But since they need a lot of charge, the batteries are still only at 53.5 volts. And you can set the current to whatever you want. That goes up to 100 amps, but that is the DC output, the current. So that's not the input. So I have it set at 30 amps right now of output, which equates to about, I think that's like 1,500 watts of input. So if you take 56 volts times, I have it at 30 amps right now, that's 1,680 watts that I'm pulling off of that extension cord right now, which is a little bit much. I think I'm gonna lower that down to 25. So I'm gonna go down to the current, and we will bring that down to 25. So now 56 volts times 25, that's only 1,400 watts going through that extension cord. That's probably still a little bit much because it's like a 50-foot extension cord and it's probably only 14 gauge. Probably should stick with 20 amps. But I'm just testing things out right now. I'm not going to walk away from this without unplugging everything. Extension cord's a little bit warm, but that's because I had it at 30 amps. So at this point, the next thing I need to do on this camper is going to be to install some solar panels. And I've been going back and forth a lot about this because the top of this roof just does not have enough room for a full-size solar panel, 300 to 400 watts. So I got these, which are kind of a joke. This is 100 watts, but I could fit 4 of them up there, maybe even 5 or 6, but I only have 4. Believe it or not, I paid a lot more money for these than I did for the 300 and 400 watt panels, because these are $100 a piece. So the biggest problem with these is that they're only about 20 volts each. So if you run them in series, and I only have 4 of them, that's only 80 volts. And the inverter will not pick up 80 volts. You need a minimum of 120. Some people are saying 150. And it takes up to, I think, 450 volts. So it's meant for some high voltage panels, which is nice. You want that. But in this case, to use these, I would need to put a separate charge controller in there just to even do anything. So I got this, which this is what I was starting out with. This is what I was going to use originally with the 12 volt system. This does 48 volts, it does 24 volts, it does 36 volts, and it does 12 volts. The problem with all of it is it's only 20 amps. So if you're doing a 12 volt system, you can only get like, I think it's like 240 watts. But if you're doing 48 volts like I am, you can go up to, I think, 1100 watts. So this would actually work really well. It would do everything I need. And it starts at a few volts over what you're trying to charge. So if you're trying to do 48 volts, you need something like 55 to 60 volts for this to start. So if I hook these 4 panels up, I could use this charge controller and just charge the batteries directly without going through the inverter. Now the problem with that is then I don't have any data from the inverter saying what I got coming in. These do have a built-in Bluetooth controller where you can monitor everything via Bluetooth. But what I'm thinking my plan right now is going to be is I'll mount the 4 that I got because I have absolutely no use for them anywhere else. So I'll mount them on the roof. I'll run them into that charge controller. We'll put that charge controller in here and hook it up into the bus. If I hook it directly into the bus bar, then it'll do something, not a lot. But then what I'm going to do also is once I get up in the Adirondacks, I'm going to bring some other panels with me and I'll just set them in various places. Like I could put 2 right here. 2 is not enough, even with the bigger panels, to start the inverter. It's not enough voltage. But we have a cabin up there and we have a southern facing metal roof, and I could put probably 30 or 40 panels up on that. But just to start out with, if I bring like 6 or 8 panels up and I mount those on that roof and just bring a cable over and plug it into this once I'm up there, that would be a good option. And I could do both. I could do these panels and the other panels. Since they're on separate charge controllers, they don't affect each other. So in other words, if this isn't getting any sun, it's not bringing down the other one. Whereas if you have them hooked all together, it would. You're basically limited to the weakest link. Like I could hook these panels with the bigger panels, but then everything's limited to what these can put out. So I think what I'm going to do is mount 2 of these. And basically this just gives the MC4 a connection outside of whatever you're putting it on. They're meant for like trailers and stuff. So then, because the whole purpose is I don't want to have this door open and have all kinds of wires going in and out. So that's why I put these here, so that I don't have to do that. I can close that door and lock it. And then as far as bringing in the solar, I can do the same thing. I can put 1 here and 1 here. And then that way, 1 can be for the solar panels on the roof and 1 can be for the solar panels that I put wherever else. Whether I just lean them up against the camper or whether I put them on the cabin roof or whatever I do, those can be the input for that. So now for the solar panels that are going on the cabin roof, that's going to be a substantial amount of solar. So I'm going to use a breaker before they come in. So basically this breaker will then feed this. So there will be an external breaker for that. For this 400 watts worth of panels, I'm not even going to bother because I don't have another breaker. I can always install one later. It just gets mounted right here. It's nothing that's any big deal. It's 5 minutes worth of work. But 400 watts is not enough to really worry about right this second. So basically there's going to be a lot of different stuff here, but I like that. I have lots of different options. You could actually fit lots of these up here, but I don't know. Just useless. Super expensive too. All right, so that went a lot quicker than I thought, actually. You mount these Z brackets to the panels first, and then you just lay them down, you put some silicone underneath, and I just used some self-piercing metal roofing screws. And so each panel, once it's assembled, it's like 30 seconds and I got it on there. So I got all the cables connected to each other in series. So I got the positive going out there, the negative going out there. Those will go to that corner. I gotta find something to secure these down, like some coax clamps or something like that. And then those will go right down to where the inlet will be, and then this is done. So I figured it'd be better to mount this inside here, right next to the inverter. That way we have kind of control of everything right here. Alright, so we still got to do a little cable management in here, but everything is working good. The charge inverter is charging it up, and everything's hooked into the bus bars. So that little solar controller is hooked right there and right there, because that only puts out 20 amps max, so these little wires is good enough. So you just run that right to the bus bar. That way it charges all the batteries once I have the batteries in. So I hooked in 6 panels that I have outside in series, and so it's about 180 volts or so. Each one's about a little over 30 volts. So those right now, even with no sun, are producing 200 to 300 watts, which is good. That's for the aux panels. That's the panels that I'm going to put up on top of the roof on the cabin, and then 450 volts leaves me lots of room to get a lot of power and not have to use big wire. And then so the roof panels, this is the inlet for that, and that's only 100 volt max. So I wrote it on here just so you don't get it mixed up, because if you put more than 100 volts into that solar controller, you'll burn it out. Same thing with any controller. If you go over the voltage, you will most likely damage it. But if you go over the current, if you go over the amps, it doesn't matter. It will limit the amps. So if I have 450 volts max, and I think that has a 13 amp max on that. So if I put 100 amps on that, it'll only use 13. You can put as many amps as you want. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the voltage. You can't go over the voltage. So that's why I wrote this on here, just so that there's no confusion. Because the roof panels are only 20 volts a piece, and I got 4 of them, so that's 80 volts. You might be able to get away with putting another one up there, but it wouldn't be very advisable. So if I do put more up there, I will have to run those in parallel. So I'll have 2 sets of parallel and 4 in series. If I do that. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I think for the most part, the panels on the roof are going to be for charging the batteries while I'm not there. Because if I'm not there for a week or 2 or 3, those panels will charge up everything, no problem. Let me show you what we got going on here. So we're still charging with the charge inverter, as well as the solar controller that's built into this. We're not using that right now. We don't have anything hooked up to that. But let me see here. So we got 135 watts coming in, and that is 170 volts on those solar panels, which is really low, but it's crazy dark outside right now. But it's still something. It's still charging up the battery. And then for the output, we got it's not much, like 70. That's 40 watts right now. Just a couple lights running and the fridge is running. So everything is working good. I gotta do some cable management inside of here too. I'm thinking of putting like a small gutter on all this stuff just because it's inside, so I don't want kids messing around with it. So we'll put some sort of gutter on everything so that they can't get into it even if they wanted to. So at this point, basically what I need to do is just sort of clean everything up, charge the batteries up, and then we're going to actually bring this up to the Adirondacks and drop it off and probably stay the night when we do that. That way we can bring up a whole bunch of stuff with us, and then we can figure out what else we need for when we actually go up to start building, which will be in a few weeks. But I think in a couple days, we're going to take this up to the Adirondacks and stay the night, and we'll use the power system, see how everything works out. So we're going to go up and just sort of test everything out, see what we need to do so that when we go up in a few weeks, when we stay for a few days at a time, then we won't have to do a bunch of running around, and we'll have everything already figured out. So one more thing I wanted to do to this camper before I bring it up there is put some heating pads on the water tank, because once I get up there, I don't want to be crawling underneath of this thing. I don't need them yet, but I don't want to go up there and be crawling on the wet ground to get those on. So while I can use the creeper in this garage, it's nice and dry, I'm going to go ahead and put those things on. I'm not going to hook them up. I'm just going to run the wire inside, and that's it for right now. So I'm really hoping to have this building done before I need these, but these were really cheap, and I just want to put them on now just in case we don't get the building done before that. So these are 12 by 18 heating pads. They're 12 volts, and they only use 40 watts. So I'm going to put 2 of them on the fresh water tank. And they got adhesive on this side. You peel off this, and there's wires on there, and then all that is adhesive. So I want to make sure that my tank is clean first, so I'm going to do that now. lights. This is about half of them. I got a lot more. I'm just letting them charge up for a little while. Pearl, wanna go up? Pearl, wanna go up?
No, I'm trying to do something.
All right, so it just stopped raining. It's like 10 o'clock at night, so we had to make a fire.
I'm gonna go find some more wood, Noah.
No, what do you think of that fire?
I think
It's not much.
yeah, well,
It's something.
we're going to get some more wood and make a bigger fire.
Yeah. So let's go check on these batteries. We were using the air conditioner for a little while to dry things up because it was really wet. And of course I forgot my Ethernet cables to connect these batteries together. But you can see the state of charge is full, and most of the way full. So right now we probably got like 12 or 13 kilowatt hours left. Truck's running good.
Do some. I want to do something. Here's my light. Oh, yeah, so you're left-handed. Oh, that's right. I'm probably not doing it. No, stay in the groove. In the groove that I made, you're supposed to stay in that groove. Go. Just go as fast as you can. The faster you go, the better it goes. Okay. Right in the groove. Let me make my own groove. Yeah, I'll let you cut that.
All right, I don't think we need any more wood. This wood will last us a while. So I still have like 20 of these lights left that I need to set up. These ones. Let's see, this one. And I'm going to attach these all over the place here. They're all solar powered and motion sensored. But there's also this one over here. This is the biggest one I got. It's like 1500 lumens. And when you come up, bam! Lights up the whole area. Look at that. So I'm going to probably hang this one on a tree pretty far up, like 20 feet up. That way it illuminates the whole area. But I only let that charge for like 3 hours in cloudy weather. So it's definitely going to be a lot brighter once it actually charges up. But yeah, I bought these like a year ago. I wanted to come up here and put them all over the place because we've never had good lighting up here. It's always been really bad. I remember when I was a kid, we used to have solar powered lights with incandescent bulbs, and they would last like a year, and at night they would last like 2 hours, and that's about it. And they weren't very bright. And then after a year you'd have to replace them. But lights have come so far since then, because I mean we're talking like the early 90s. So yeah, that was a long time ago. Alright, so let's check the battery system after running it for a full night with some air conditioning and stuff. So now they're kind of equalized out. They're around 75% right now. So I guess you could last about 4 days. But that's with no solar, because I have nothing for solar set up right now, except for the 4 panels that are on the roof, but they're not really going to do much. Those are mainly for leaving the system on and letting it charge for weeks. So while we're here, I was going to use 6 400-watt panels up on that roof on the back side, because that's a south-facing roof.
But just know that we have a ton of projects coming up here. We're going to be up here a lot. We're going to be doing some massive projects up here. I got some massive plans. Got some massive machines coming up. And I'll show you guys that soon. So I'm going to leave a link for the main components in the description. But yeah, these Ruxu batteries are really good. Remember, so I have approximately 15 kilowatt hours of energy storage, and that's I think that's almost too much. You don't really need quite this much. This is like 15 of those lithium iron phosphate car batteries, which are actually not car batteries, they're deep cycle. And if you were to compare this to lead acid batteries, this is about 30 of them, because you can only get about half of the storage out of the lead acid batteries. You don't want to go below 50%, otherwise you'll damage the batteries. With these, you can go down to 0 or close to it. So if you compare this to lead acid batteries, that's 30 of them. So that's like a lot. It's a lot of storage. So if you were really stretching it out, you could probably go a week and a half with this without charging anything. And then it would just take you, depending on your generator size, it would probably take you between 4 and 8 hours to recharge everything. So if you have to do that once a week, that's not really that bad. But anyways, we came up here to drop this camper off, and we've accomplished that. We can't really do much more because it's raining and we're all sick, so we're probably going to head home soon. But that's it for this video, guys, and I will catch you on the next one.